It's a good time to get started, and if we have any other students joining us here in the next few moments, we'll let them. So welcome everybody. My name is Caroline Spethman. I'm a medical student here at UNMC. I'm a member of the Aging and Integrative Medicine EMIT and our exec board for the interprofessional group. I want to say thank you to Rachel for helping organize this speaker. This is our last presentation of our seminar series for Primary Care Month of October. So we're super excited to wrap this up. And we have a very important topic to touch on today. Our title of our seminar today is called Health Outside the Hospital, in-home family caregiving. So there are an estimated 48 million unpaid family caregivers in the United States who dedicate not only their time, but money and energy into making sure their loved ones are taken care of. Caregivers carry a significant burden and often go unrecognized as key members of the patient's healthcare team. So in recognition of Primary Care Month, please join us today for our panel discussion of family caregivers who participate in the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging's Caregiver Support Program. So we have Mike Osberg to our right, and then we have Mary Stewart, Nicole Millen, and then Tina Van Landingham as our three panelists today.
Longer caregiver, but it's getting a little bit easier every day. So,
I'm Nicole Millen. I need a disclaimer. I have got what's called the harvest hack. So it's just seasonal allergies, and been vaccinated and tested. We're all good. So I just want to let your caregiver for my husband, who is now 60 years old. We've been on this journey for probably 10 years, and I'm still working full time. He goes to the club at Maple Rose 5 days a week so that I can still work. I need to work, and it's just been a very interesting, hard journey. It's different taking care of a spouse, and it's just been really eye-opening, stretching, growing, and I'm glad that I'm able to provide him good care. But we are looking to transition him. Right now, things are really difficult because the care facilities have a lack of staffing, which I think is worldwide. And so right now that's the thing, because we want to make sure he gets good care, but it's, it's difficult to find a place now that is fully staffed for that.
My name is Tina Van Landingham. I am the caregiver of my mother, who does have dementia. It's a later stage. It's not the late stage, but it's a later stage of dementia. We live with each other. She is with me pretty much 24/7. I do work from home every day except for Tuesday, in which I have a companion come in for. I'm not trying to transition her out of the home into a facility as of yet. I feel like she does better at home, and I'd like to keep her there as long as possible. Plus, we just got her back in February. She had fallen down and broke her hip, so she was in rehab for probably about 2-3 months. So that was a very big adjustment for me, and then getting her back. So.
The words I'm going to talk the least here, but I am the coordinator of the Caregiver Support Program at the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging. And we have approximately 80 caregivers in our program currently. And our primary goal is to provide respite to the caregiver. It could be in-home caregiving, respite 6 hours a week. Could be adult day programming 5 days a month. So our main client is the caregiver. We care about the care receiver, of course, but the caregiver is our client that we provide respite for.
Okay, great. We have a list of questions for our panelists today, and they have prepared answers for. So students and faculty, if you come up with more questions, we'll just save them towards the end. We should have time. So our first question, panelists, is we invited you today. We're so grateful you're here because we believe it lines up with our theme, health outside of the hospital. do you agree that caregiving is a form of healthcare in relation to your story?
Yes.
Mhm.
Simple and short.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and it helps too because you're able to keep them at home longer and not have to use the resources such as Medicaid or things like that, as much. And so it kind of helps society too, and to keep them at home and healthy.
I also think it's a huge impact on their mental health
Mhm.
because they have that interaction with somebody that they may not recognize, but they're familiar with. Whereas when they go into a home, they may not have the same caregiver, and that can be a little bit traumatizing for them. So I think it's a huge yes, to have them have that consistency.
I agree with that. My mom was diagnosed in 2008, and I kept her home until this year. So I really think that made a difference in slowing down the progression of her disease. Just like she said, just having her in a familiar environment, and people could still come and visit her, and she could still do things around the house. So
Mhm.
I think that makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. And it says, what have you had to learn since becoming a caregiver? And may that be about the caregiving itself or maybe about you personally and what's important to you?
For me, it taught me to always remain in a state of forgiveness, because your loved one is going to do things or say things that is going to hurt your feelings. And ordinarily you would require an apology to continue on, with that relationship, but they don't have the mental capacity to do that. So it took me a while to master that state of forgiveness with my mom. But she was my greatest teacher because of her disease. She would do things or say things, and then 5 minutes later, she's completely forgotten all about it. Where I'm sitting there with brain matter oozing out of my ear because I'm so upset. But I learned from her, live in the moment. And when that moment has passed, go on to the next. So forgiveness for me was my greatest lesson.
Mhm. Yeah. And I'd add patience onto that. And also, I think it was Diana at ENOA, my case manager, said, put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their position and try to see life from their eyes. Put yourself in their world instead of trying to pull them into your world. And I think that's where a lot of frustration happens, is when we try to pull them back into our world. And so it's kind of kept a sense of joy in our house, that we're able to laugh at I'm able to laugh at the nonsense because it is just a lot of nonsense. And it's helped take down, once I kind of got that inbred in me, it's helped take down my stress level.
Where there is probably the biggest battle, but it's also the most rewarding just because it helps you maintain some of your sanity as well.
What have you had to learn since becoming a caregiver? And I feel like did we just do that? So what is something you wish you had known? Sorry, it's kind of similar, but what is something you wish you had known about caregiving before becoming a caregiver? I feel like this is similar.
It's not easy. Anybody who thinks it's easy just either doesn't remember what it was like when their kid was a toddler. If you've had kids, that's what it's like caring for somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's. It's like caring for 100-pound toddler. So it's not easy. You go through highs and lows with them. You do have to learn patience, and you do have to learn forgiveness and all that other good stuff, which you may not have practiced very well. You also have to know when to take care of yourself. A lot of people don't do really good at that, where they take time for themselves and make sure that they're taken care of, because if you break down, the whole system can kind of collapse if you don't have a good support system.
Yep, very true. Yeah, I completely agree with that. My husband has Lewy body syndrome, which is it presents itself the same as Parkinson's, only but it's not Parkinson's. And so it's like taking care of a toddler, only you add, how many years onto me, not being a young mom. And so, you add on, let's be gracious, 30 years, and then, how many ever pounds and height he is. And so that it will take a toll on you. And one thing that I wish I would have known, do not underestimate the value of long-term care insurance.
One of the things I wish I had known is that my mom would pull the mom card at any point during caregiving. And that is just, nope, not doing that. Nope, don't feel like doing that. Or in the very beginning of her disease, she would remind me that I was a daughter, she was a mother, and she doesn't have to do what I say. So I wish I had known about that. And I wish I had known the different stages of the disease, because all of that came at a complete surprise to me, just not knowing. I mean, you can Google and look up things on the internet, but it's different when you're in the trenches. So I'm hoping that this video and also the book, Mike, that you had talked about, will be a saving grace to people that are becoming or will become caregivers, just to kind of give them a little bit of a blueprint and to just help them understand some of the things that they will or could encounter.
You may ask what book?
Well, we put together a book of experiences, skills, ideas, feedback from 17 of our caregivers. And they were very honest about what it's like to be a caregiver, very honest about the things they have struggled with, but also ideas to help new caregivers in the journey too. So it's called Caregiver to Caregiver, a handbook on the journey of caregiving. So we're working on that, getting it all put together, but really, really powerful things, feedback from people who are actually doing it.
That's great. Okay, ladies, are we ready for the next one? Okay. So we talked about challenges. If you ladies have other challenges you'd like to touch on, or even your biggest challenge about caregiving, but also I want to hear more about what you have found to be the most rewarding in caregiving.
So one of the challenges that I have is that my mom, with her disease, has reverted back to her native tongue, which is Japanese. Guess what? I don't speak Japanese.
Oh.
So it's been very interesting through that whole process. Not a lot of other caregivers speak Japanese, but she understands English. So that is something that you may want to keep in mind if you are going to become a caregiver and your parents' first language is not English. You don't know theirs. But the most rewarding thing is that I know she knows me. She may not know exactly who I am, but I know that she knows me. And it's very rewarding to be the one that, that when she wakes up in the morning and smiles and does stuff that is kind of kiddish and cute, that I know that she knows that it's for me. I'm never going to regret taking care of my mom. That's been my reward.
Yeah, that's very good. I think probably, I do not enjoy being a caregiver, but it's what I signed up for. When you say I do, that's what you signed up for. And one thing that I think we've done really well in our house is we've kept a sense of joy. We've kept a sense of lightheartedness. My husband was always a joyful person and caring about others. In fact, this happened because of a trauma experience and because he cared too much. And so we've really worked hard to keep a sense of joy in our house. And I had to learn that because I get very frustrated, and I had to kind of come to Jesus moment with myself, that as far as, do I need to be right or do I need to just let it go and be joyful? Because I see so many spouses that are frustrated and mad and everything because maybe their wife just wants to sit on the deck all day in their robe instead of getting dressed like normal people. And they're so frustrated, which transfers onto your care receiver, that I think we've done a really good job of keeping joy in our house. And that makes life so much easier.
For me, I think that the entire experience has been challenging, but yet rewarding at the same time. It was very difficult for me to relinquish care for my mom into the hands of a nursing home because no one could do it better than I could. At least that's what I told myself. So just the entire experience, I think, was burdensome. I wish that, looking now, I wish I had demanded that my siblings helped more because they didn't. That's probably the one regret. The positive is just, my mom having those moments where she did recognize me, like you were saying. One of the things that my mom and I would do every weekend is I'd get her up, get her dressed, and feed her breakfast. And she would sit in the living room. My mom has a doll. The doll's name is Baby. She doesn't have a name. But that was a source of comfort for her. So she would sit and talk and play with that doll and whisper in the doll's ear. Had no idea what she was saying, but she was always whispering in the doll's ear. So it was great to see my mom just be at peace. Just that doll was just her everything, and still is to this day. We packed her up and took her to the nursing home with my mom. Everybody knows who the baby is because my mom has told them this is the baby. She doesn't introduce herself, but she will say this is the baby. So just seeing that she was able to find something that she related to, I guess, after raising 6 kids, what she remembers is raising 6 kids and having babies around. So I think that baby just became one of us, and that was a place of peace for her.
Next question is, caregiving can be physically demanding at times. Lifting, bending, and supporting can cause pain and soreness and your own injuries. How have you handled these challenges, the physical demand of caregiving?
I had to dial 911 this morning I didn't know that you can, if you're for just a lift assist. And my husband, he gets up during the night and paces, but he's so awesome. He doesn't get agitated or this and that. He's trying to help people. He's trying to help build things and help this and help that. He's always got projects going on. And so it's nice that, he's not paranoid or angst ridden, which a lot of folks are. But then he went to sit down on the bed again and missed the bed. And so it wasn't like a crash. It was just like, and we got a whole wet lasagna noodle on the floor. And I couldn't help him up. I couldn't, his body was not really coordinated, or we weren't able to communicate to have him, roll over, okay, stand up, this and that. And my therapist at one time had just said, hey, if he ever falls, call lift assist. Didn't know they did lift assist. Called, here they come. 4 firefighters. They were so kind. 20 seconds later, he's up and in his chair. And the hardest part was consoling my Spanish-speaking neighbor who loves us like her own family. That she, explaining everything was okay in my Spanglish. And that was, so I tried to get him up, but this is not working. And then, chiropractor and massage does wonders.
I experienced the same thing. I have a cousin that is a retired fireman. So he said, hey, just call us anytime. He said, that's what we do. We go and help people up, help people down the stairs. He said, if your mom ever falls, give us a call. So some of the guys, I just started to know them by name because they were coming so often. And then again, just like you said, I have a friend that is a massage therapist, so I'm penciled in on her schedule every week for the next, I think, 2 years or something. So that helps. Dr. Scholl's Epsom salt, that helps as well. I recommend the lavender.
And breathe deeply.
Yes.
Unfortunately, my mom is like 4 foot nothing.
Oh.
So that's, I mean, I usually can get her up on my own. So I don't have that, but I still have the aches and pains. I don't get massages anymore just because I don't have the time. I've prioritized other things that I like that make me take
That's
care of
good.
myself. I meditate. And when I can, I'll do yoga, but I do a lot of gardening, so
Oh.
I don't. So some of the aches and pains is from that, not necessarily from taking care of my mom.
And I think the thing to keep in mind too is that, you know, chiropractors, massage therapists, things like that are an out-of-pocket expense for the caregivers. And so I would love to go once a week, cannot go once a week. You know, so that's the thing that people don't understand. You know, they're just like, oh, go to the chiropractor more, go to the, you know, massage therapist and this and that. And you're like, okay. But you know, when you have that out-of-pocket expense, it adds up. You know, like you said, you've got to reprioritize. You know, do I go buy another package of pens or, you know, this and that?
This question is, caregivers often report that caregiving can at times feel very isolating and lonely. If you feel comfortable sharing with us, have you ever felt this way? And if so, how have you handled these feelings? Do you have a support system for you?
I never mastered those feelings. They just come and go, you know, good days and bad days. So I have not tackled those feelings. I do, however, have cousins and friends that are in the exact same boat that I'm in. So we do get together and, as we say, share war stories. It is usually it starts out very tearful, but ends up with a lot of laughter because there really are funny moments when you are caregiving for your loved one. So that's actually my release and my support group is the people that are in the trenches with me.
I think probably that has been one of my biggest challenges because my husband and I, I'm sorry, I brought my big Kleenex. My husband and I were very, very active socially and active. We served like in our church and we volunteered places, this and that. We would lead teams to Greece to help with their refugee crisis, you know, and then all of a sudden that's taken away. And it's very, very difficult, especially, you know, in our age group. I think we're the first couple to go through something like this, just because of the whole, you know, dynamics and chronology about everything. And people just really don't know what to do with us. You know, you figure that out, yeah. And you know, going out to eat is out of the question because it's expensive, and then you know, it just doesn't work because you've got to cut up food and help. And then, you know, what happens if he has to go to the bathroom? They don't have family bathrooms and I got to go in and, you know, it's a hassle. And I think, and we've been left behind and I don't think our friends have done it intentionally. It just is one of those things, you know, and that's been a really, really difficult thing for me. And yeah. It's been very, very difficult.
I do sometimes feel isolated, but I do have a very good friend who kind of went through something similar to this with her dad. He just passed away from Parkinson's. So she's there for me. And then I do have a brother and sister who are here and help when they can. But I am the person that a lot of this falls on. So I kind of take it in stride. There are times when I'm ready to pull my hair out, just because I feel like nobody's there to help. But some of that's my fault because I am not good at asking for the help. So that falls on me. And with COVID, I didn't want people coming into the house. So some of the isolation is self isolation. Some of it is just not wanting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel good about where I am. I don't. I know there's a reason why I'm doing this, so I try not to. Yeah, but I totally get that where you both are coming from, because it is very hard when you feel like you've been left behind and you don't have somebody there.
Yeah, and then that asking for help, it's hard. What do you ask for? And people are very kind, they come up and I think they mean it in all sincerity. Whatever you need, I'll let you know, please let me know. And we're like, I don't know, it's huge. It's kind of like having a great big glass bottle full of marbles and going, where's the blue one in there, type of thing. It's like, I can't pinpoint what I need. And so what I would recommend to people that want to help is pick something specific and say, hey, you know what? How about if I come over once a week and I weed in front of your house? Or how about if I come over once a week and I'll just drop a meal off, type of thing. Instead of, because the area's like, hey, we'll take you out to dinner. It's like, once again, oh no, and how do you, because they mean well,
Right.
and you don't want to be offensive and say, no. So it's just, it's difficult on both ends, the people that want to help, and then for the receivers too.
So we talked about physical wellness as far as massage and Epsom salts. But we know that caregivers need to take care of yourselves first so that you can care for your loved one. We talked about gardening and yoga as well. Are there any other activities you do mindfully that you feel maybe help you restart or keep you sane, or your brain matter in your brain, like you said?
I think for me, I'm a walker. I like to walk. I feel like the sunshine is like my best friend. So I try to take walks as often as I can. And in my mind, I tell myself that each time my foot hits the pavement, I'm releasing the stresses of the day. So
That's
that
good.
kind of helps me physically and it helps me mentally as well.
That's good. Oh, being Christ followers ourselves, I'm able to lean into our faith community, and that helps a lot. But like, once again, what do they do with you? And so that's probably where it's a frustration, but a comfort at the same time.
I meditate daily. That really helps. It's getting harder, but I still go out and do the garden stuff just because the weather's not permitting. And clean, sometimes I cook. These are all things I like to do. Also, the other thing is that if I'm stressed and my mom catches that, she gets stressed. So there's nothing wrong with like giving her quiet time in a different room. I feel like that is probably one of the biggest saving graces that we have, is when I'm stressed out and she picks that up and gets stressed, is to like kind of separate so that she can calm down and I can calm down.
For sure.
Yeah, they're very intuitive.
Yeah.
They're very empathic. They pick up, our emotions like nobody's business.
Okay, we have our last question from the group that we submitted to you before. We'll open it up. It is, when it comes time for patients or residents to need caregiving, it can be difficult for them to accept help or give up a portion of their independence. How do you reassure them or make sure that they feel comfortable?
In the beginning of my mom's journey, my mom's checkbook was very meticulous. She didn't round up, she didn't round down, it was right to the penny. One day I looked in her checkbook and it looked like a first grader had been writing in it. And then the phone calls from collection companies started and the collection notices. And so, I did everything I could. I'm taking money out of my account, throwing it into her account just to make sure bills got paid. And one day she asked me to take her to the bank, and I did. And my mom was never one to go through the drive-through. She always had to go inside. So we went inside, and I realized she had a very good rapport with an employee in the bank. So I thought, let me see if I can use that to my advantage. So I called this lady the next day, and I said, hey, my mom's account is just out of control. And it was in the negative and had been for quite some time. I said, I noticed that you and my mom have a really good rapport. Can you help me convince her to allow me to help her with her checkbook? So she said, sure, bring her in. So I took my mom in the next day, and I kind of stayed in the background, and I let the employee talk to my mom, and she was able to convince my mom to let me take over her checkbook. I didn't have to do anything. I let this lady that had built this rapport with my mom, I let her convince her to, let's get your account cleaned up because it's really bad. And so that was very easy. So I was able to take over. And I think that was right around the time I became her power of attorney as well. So I was able to take over all of her bill paying, and took a little bit to get her account back together, but we did it. So outside of that, I think I may have probably solicited the help of her brothers to convince me to help her with other things. But I knew the banking was going to be the biggest challenge. So I was glad that I took her and saw the rapport that she had with this lady and just kind of used that to my advantage.
Very smart. Yeah, find your weapon and use it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've recently hired a bath aide to come in, and she's a friend of ours from church, and she has an amazing caregiving service, and she just loves Dave. And she comes, and how I always like, it's, you have a new friend coming. It's like when the firefighter showed up this morning. He's like, hey, Dave, we have friends here to help us, and he's like, oh, okay, and instead of saying, I can't get you up. You can't get up. So I got to call 911 to get people up. It's just how you present things. Like you said, finding your soft spot and using it. But it is hard because I think as women too, we tend to assimilate, and it's like, and accommodate things as they happen slowly. And it's like that frog in a pot thing, that frog doesn't know it's boiling until it's boiling. And so I found that with me, before you know it, you're kind of like in over your head. And as soon as somebody recommended having a bath aide come, and they did it a couple times, I'm like, dang, this is good, Yeah, kind of taking stuff off your shoulders. And so you start thinking, okay, what else can we do to help lighten the load for me physically and emotionally?
It was a big thing for me. That was a lifesaver, because that was always a battle for me to get my mom into the bath. I don't know what it is about this disease, but they hate water. They hate taking baths. And if you are not the person that they're battling, it makes life so much easier. So that was the one thing that was a lifesaver for me. The other thing is just the ability to go into my office one day a week, to have somebody else come in and be with my mom and take her through her day, just so that we both get a little break from each other.
As far as the bath goes, I did talk to a doctor at, I think Methodist Hospital, and he said with dementia and Alzheimer's patients, they will develop a fear of water. So that's why the bath is such a hassle.
Oh,
So with my mom, like I would just put just a little bit of water in the bathtub to get her. If I put, 4 inches of water, she's, she looks terrified, just standing on the outside looking in, and I couldn't get her in. So I stopped running so much water, and she was able to get in the tub.
I think some of it is that they just feel cold.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, so it is a relief not to have to do that, so
Mhm.
to have
Yeah.
somebody else, and she doesn't fight them.
Mhm.
When she came out of rehab, we had this wonderful girl through Hillcrest that would come in, and my mom was just so sweet to her, and I was just like,
I know. Yeah, yeah.
so.
Well, it's nice too that you don't have to take care of your loved ones in that intimate way. You know, like your parent or a spouse, you don't have to, take care of them in that intimate way. It just somehow is a little emotionally relieving.
I actually didn't mind. That was, those were precious moments for her and I. Yeah. And my mom loved, it was a fight to get her in the tub, to have her sit down on the shower chair. That was a fight. But once I got her in there, she loved it. I'd get her out and we go in her room and I'd lotion her down and she's smiling the whole time. She couldn't verbally say thank you, but her facial expression said it all for me. So I didn't mind. I didn't mind the bath times. Those are precious for us.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was the last of our pre-submitted questions. So guys, if you have additional questions, raise your hand. I have a question now that I'd love to ask you ladies. Because in the room here, we have future physicians, PAs, pharmacists, nurses, PTs. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Future healthcare providers. And I would love to know what you wish we would know now going into that. How can we be better advocates for you?
Wow.
I was gonna say, my mom had wonderful doctors through the military for the longest time, but none of them really talked about services. It wasn't until she was matched with Dr. Bishop at your elder care facility, where they really brought in the social worker and whatnot, and really helped me be able to know about services. That's how I got involved with the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging. So I think one of the things that as a provider that you can do is make sure that you help them understand what type of services are available, even if there's private pay or through the state. It just helps, and that's the one thing that I know really made a difference. I'm nothing against any of the military doctors because they took wonderful care of my mom, but it really truly wasn't until we got tied to the geriatric doctor that really kind of stepped us up to the point of where we got the information that we really needed.
Yeah, I'd really agree with that. And even though you may not be going into geriatrics or something like that, this is an epidemic that's happening. And so you're going to be seeing it in your practice, in your pharmacy, whatever you're going to go into. So I would say go ahead and get yourself educated on this. And, as your client base gets older, your patient base gets older, or their parents get older, or this and that, if you're looking to care for the whole patient, whether it be the caregiver, they're going to need some support and help. So I would say go ahead and it's not a waste of time to go ahead and educate yourself on what's out there. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know a few things to point them to, and let the professionals take it from there.
I agree with both of them.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I know we covered a lot. Yeah, Rachel?
I was just kind of curious if you guys could comment on how you handled the COVID or if it impacted your care of them at all. It was just a time of disruption, so I didn't know if your individual family members caught on to that or you were able to continue pretty much as normal. I was just curious about the impact of that all time.
So my mom broke her hip on December 15th, right in the height of COVID. So the majority of the first, I guess the peak of it was in the hospital getting her hip repaired, and then into a home, which sucked because the only way I could see her is from a window, and it was during the winter months. So for me, it was awful. Just because I was home alone. I didn't, I couldn't talk to her because she couldn't, like, in the nursing homes, I know that they do a really great job of trying to make sure that you can still interact with your loved one there. But with my mom, not really fully speaking English and not really understanding, we didn't get that luxury. So when she finally got home, I was working from home 5 days a week. So that was pretty much it. It wasn't until maybe after I was vaccinated, we both got vaccinated, that I actually started to go into the office 1 day a week and had somebody come in that I know is vaccinated. So.
COVID was hard for us because I'd just gotten to the point where Dave was going to go into a day program down at Maple Rose at the club. And the day we were going to start was the day they closed. And, so I had already mentally got myself all prepped for that. It was hard to realize that that was the next step because, this has been a really long journey for us. And a lot of it too is because my husband was so physically fit. He was a world-class athlete in his youth. And so he was so physically fit. So we didn't have to battle with that part of it. But so I had gotten myself, okay, he's gonna need to go because he can't be at home by himself anymore. I've got to work. And then COVID came. And I saw a really big downward spin in him because he was going to the Croc Center for their senior program every day. Loved them. He loved it. And so all of a sudden his social circle was cut off. And my social circle was cut off. We just ended up looking at each other every day. And it was really difficult too, because like I said, I had just gotten myself prepped for it. I'm trying to work from home. He's still mobile and active enough and that he needed attention. So it was really challenging.
For me, my mom was going to an adult daycare center prior to COVID. And then COVID hit and the daycare center had to shut down. So I had to switch jobs, and luckily I was able to find a job where I was able to work from home. So my mom was at home for a while, and then I was able to move her into a different adult daycare center where initially she started going 3 days a week, and then it just got to be too much at home. So I had to put her in 5 days a week. So that's the way it affected us. The last daycare center that she was attending, they had one outbreak, but not in the daycare area, in the living part. So it didn't affect the daycare at all. So we were very lucky.
See no other questions. Rachel, you have another question?
I do have another one. So I'm from physical therapy, and part of my education as a student is how to help patients, but also as a provider, how to keep my body safe with moving different humans around all the time. So I was just curious if during the course of your caregiving, did you ever feel like you were educated on how to move a person around, or did you seek out sources to get an education?
Since my mom broke her hip, I had a physical therapist coming into the home who was an occupational therapist, both of who were very helpful in helping me know the best ways to get her to move around and help her manipulate things. So they were both very, very helpful.
I would say not so much me because, our situation was different. He's very physically able, sort of, kind of at this point. But when we were having PT, OT, and ST come in, they were all focused on him because at that point he, wasn't presenting as far as needing, my help to get up, get down, things like that. So I feel like I did not get the, as far as like looking down the road idea.
I actually received help from outside. We had PT and I believe OT that came to our house for, I think, maybe a month. So I just would always stand back and just watch what they were doing. And that's how I learned to do different things with her to help her, whether she needed to get up from a chair or turn her legs so she could stand up from the bed. I just took cues from them. So yeah, I did get an outside agency.
But they weren't necessarily educating you directly, you were just obliquely watching? Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a super quick question. I know we don't have that much time left, so if you guys just briefly answer, it's really difficult as a provider to see the adult who I know is the patient, but I know they can't really answer all of my questions but I also want them to be included. So have you seen any people do a really good job at addressing both you, who obviously has the answers, as well as the patient who's your parent or your spouse? You see what I mean? How it's like awkward?
Yeah, my mom initially started out at the geriatrics clinic at Methodist Hospital, and they were excellent. They would always address her, but knew that I had the answer. So, and just out of respect, I would give her time to answer and it didn't matter what she said, whether the answer was correct or not. It was just giving her that respect, letting her know that we are not excluding her. And once she gave her answer, then I would follow up with the correct answer. So Methodist, their clinic did a very good job.
Exactly. I would say, yeah, as far as, because there are providers, we went to a neurologist that was very, not great bedside manner, let's put it that way, and really excluded Dave on a lot of things. And, but yeah, if the provider, like the last neurologist we went to, was fantastic, would look at Dave, address Dave, and kind of every once in a while kind of give me the little, side eye, like, is this the, like, go ahead and chime in, please. But yeah, that's really important to give that person that dignity. And even if that person, the care receiver, is not acknowledging that it helps the caregiver go, oh, they see my loved one as a person,
And I think it kind of helps the physician to see where that patient is as well, just to kind of see how well they can or cannot interact.
I agree. Let's see any other questions. So let's please give our panelists a round of applause. So much for joining us today. I know what you do every day can seem thankless, but we thank you for sharing your story and your experiences with us. We haven't had experiences like this before, so we're very grateful to learn from you. So for those in attendance today, before you leave, write down your name on a piece of paper with Rachel, because Drs. Venema and Dr. Sebesky were so kind to donate raffling prizes. So more incentive to be here. So thank you all.
don't miss out.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys for your interest. This is really, it's very inspiring to see people interested in this field.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.